Hello, my name is Glen Bauer. I'm Professor Emeritus in the Department of Music at Webster University, and I'm here to give you a brief preview of Les Contes d'Hoffmann by Jacques Offenbach. The Tales of Hoffman, a very interesting opera and one that I think you will certainly enjoy. I'll be giving you a little background on Offenbach and often also on E.T.A. Hoffmann and playing you a few musical examples as well. Jacques Offenbach started off his professional career as a professional cellist. For 20 years, between 1835 and 1855, he was a cello virtuoso and played in numerous orchestras and as a soloist as well. These are some later photographs of Offenbach in later years. His father was Isaac Eberst, a cantor in Cologne, and his father changed the family name to Offenbach in 1808, Offenbach named after his father's original hometown. Jacques Offenbach is frequently credited as the originator of the modern operetta, and it is his operetta works for which he is perhaps best known. So the operetta was a popular form of entertainment made up of spoken dialogue, song, and dance, whose tone ranged from sentimental comedy through satire, parody, and often outright farce. Offenbach wrote about 90 of them, quite an enormous output. His influence in the area of operetta spread to other countries, including Austria, with Johann Strauss Jr., Franz Lehar, and others, and also England with the works of Gilbert and Sutherland. The most famous operettas of Offenbach are perhaps Orpheus in the Underworld, La Belle Hélène, La Vie Parisienne, and there are others like The Grand Duchess of Gerolstein and so forth. His last work is perhaps his one true opera, an opera fantastique, you might say, Les Contes d'Hoffmann, which he was writing in 1880 at the time of his death. It was left incomplete at his death. He had not completed much of the Act 4 or the end of Act 5, nor begun the orchestration, but the work was completed by another composer, Ernest Guiraud. This is another portrait of Offenbach on the left, and a portrait of E.T.A. Hoffman on the right. E.T.A. Hoffman's dates 1776 to 1822. Hoffman was a very important writer. He was an author of fantasy and even Gothic horror in the late 18th, early 19th century. He was also an artist. He wrote other types of works, and he was also a music critic. He was one of the first to recognize the extraordinary contributions of Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Mozart, incidentally, was one of the great composers that Offenbach had the most reverence for. So the libretto for Les Contes d'Hoffmann is by Jules Barbier and based on a play that he wrote with Michel Carré in 1851. And the play is based on 3 short stories by E.T.A. Hoffmann, the E.T.A. standing for Ernst Theodor Amadeus, by the way. So those 3 stories, which feature in that play, but also in the opera, are Hoffmann's The Sandman, The Lost Reflection, and Counselor Crespel. So Sandman forms the basis for Act 1, The Lost Reflection for Act 2, and Counselor Crespel for Act 3. E.T.A. Hoffmann also inspired other works, most notably Tchaikovsky's ballet, The Nutcracker, which was based on the Hoffmann work, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King from 1816. Also, Delibes' ballet, Coppelia, which is based on The Sandman, and Hindemith's opera, Cardillac, based on Das Fräulein was Scuderi, the young woman from Scuderi. So beyond Offenbach, Hoffmann had an influence on many other composers as well. Now, the Contes d'Hoffmann is a rather complex opera in structure and in terms of all of the characters and so forth as well. In a sense, it's almost like four operas in one. So I've tried to outline some of that here as well. So we have the prologue and the epilogue, which are related. And then in between, we have Act One, Act Two, and Act Three, each of which are sort of a separate story on their own. The prologue and the epilogue both take place in Nuremberg and involve the characters of Stella, Lindoro, Hoffman, and Hoffman's friend or muse Niklaus. Act One takes place in Paris, and the main characters are Olympia, Spallanzani, and again, Hoffman and Niklaus appear in each act. Act Two takes place in Munich and involves the characters of Antonia, Crespel. Act Three takes place in Venice and involves Giulietta and Dappertutto. So I also lined them up this way because there's a parallel here vertically with Stella, Olympia, Antonia, Giulietta, and Stella once again. In a sense, Olympia, Antonia, and Giulietta are all elements of Stella. In a sense, they are all the part of the same character. Similarly, Lindoro is the character you might think of as our villain, as are Spallanzani, Crespo, and Dappertutto in Acts 1, 2, and 3. Hoffman and Niklaus remain the same throughout. In terms of arias in Les Contes d'Hoffmann, there are many famous parts, and I've listed some of them here. One is Hoffman's aria in the prologue, Il était une fois à la cour d'Eisenach, Once Upon a Time in the Court of Eisenach. Olympia's aria, Les oiseaux dans la charmille, The Birds in the Bower, which we will be hearing later on. Antonia's aria, Elle a fui la tourterelle, She has fled the turtle dove. And from Act 4, a duet between Giulietta and Niklaus, O belle nuit, O nuit d'amour, Beautiful Night, O Night of Love, which is often referred to as a barcarolle. A barcarolle is a kind of Venetian boat song, which has a certain lilt to it, kind of imitating a gondola trip in the canals of Venice. So first, the Doll's song, the song that Antonia sing. It's often referred to as the Doll's song. Antonia is a mechanical doll who happens to have a most incredible voice, and so that comes across in this performance by Brooklyn Snow, who incidentally will be singing all three of the heroines in the opera. A wonderful aria, and rightly famous for its difficulty and complexity. The next part I want to share with you is the barcarolle from Act 3, the duet between Niklaus and Giulietta. Sorry. With Brooklyn Snow and Emma Sorensen. Who can forget that melody? And it is certainly memorable. One of the things I can't explain adequately is the complexity of this opera. As I said, Hoffman himself is a character and begins and ends the opera, and much of it is about the way these women in each act are really part of the same character, part of Stella. The music itself tends to be rather eclectic. At times it's very lyrical. At times there are aspects that are fantastical, juxtaposition of styles, dance hall styles, and various things that Offenbach actually pulls off in a most extraordinary way. So I hope you'll enjoy the opera. It is certainly one of those operas that is worth not worth missing. So thank you for paying attention, listening to my preview, and I hope you enjoy.